Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And we're going to go straight into the music news. Music news. So, Joy, what music news do you have for us this evening?
We sound pretty excited for what's not a positive. Like, you're all like, yay, music news. And then I look at it, it's like, oh, yeah, my music news is about someone dying.
Oh, dear.
So, anyway. Just so you guys know, Tim was not excited about this. He does not know it until I say it. So anyway, this is a drummer. His name is Jerry Allison. He was the drummer and songwriter for Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and he died today at 82 years old.
Oh, well, rock in peace, sir. I do know one interesting fact about the Crickets. So, of course, we lost Buddy Holly very early on into his career, but the Crickets from Lubbock, Texas carried on being the Crickets. And an interesting rock and roll story is that when Brian May was a very young man, he used to listen to Buddy Holly's music and Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
Oh.
And then later on, years after the fact, he actually got to perform with the Crickets, playing the part of Buddy Holly, singing and playing guitar. So
that's cool.
It was apparently it absolutely blew his mind that, he would get to perform with the Crickets.
Well, I'm a big Buddy Holly fan. I always have been. I understand that's the day the music died. So this guy's name was Jerry. He went by J.I., like his little nickname, Allison. And basically, Allison, born in 1939, met Holly in the 50s. The two began playing as a duo. So he's the original founding member with Buddy Holly. I thought that was cool. Allison on the drums, Holly on guitar and vocals. I guess they did have a bass player at the time. Allison even accompanied Holly to Nashville for his very first unsuccessful, because that's how the Tim says, is a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, recording session in 1956. 1 year later, Allison and Holly linked up with bassist Joe B. Madeline and officially became the Crickets. Not only did Allison's drums anchor the pioneering rock and roll group sound, but also played on to incorporate role in crafting the group songs. So eventually he started doing producing and writing and things like that. He started putting pen to paper. He's credited as a co-writer on That'll Be the Day, Peggy Sue, and More Than I Can Say. So some of their biggest songs.
Well, there we are. Well, rock in peace, sir. You had a fruitful and long rock and roll career, and your work with Buddy Holly was amazing.
And I'm sure that there is some radio station out right now that Peggy Sue is playing because it's one of those songs.
Absolutely. I mean, I was listening to some Buddy Holly the other day. I mean, it makes you wonder what Buddy Holly would have achieved if he was still alive today.
See, and I love that sound. And I love the That'll Be the Day. The sound of his voice and that opening kind of very soft but rhythmic sound is so ingrained in my brain. Do you know what I mean, Tim? It's such a very distinct sound. His voice is gorgeous. He had a great look, and you guys might laugh, but that's important in rock and roll. It is.
Absolutely.
I mean, who doesn't know Axl Rose without a thing around it, like a sweatshirt around his, you know what I mean? And then his bandana, right? That's just a look. It's just a look. Or we've got AC/DC wearing, schoolgirl skirts, jumping across the stage. I guess it's probably a kilt, actually, but whatever. You guys know what I mean.
It's a boys' school uniform.
That's what I said, schoolgirls, but I guess it's a boys' school uniform. It's not a skirt, it was shorts, everybody. I realized that after I said it. Whatever. That look, it's iconic, right, Tim? That's what I'm getting at. I mixed Axl Rose's thing around his waist with the schoolboy uniform, and it became one in my brain. I was thinking schoolgirls. But anyway, everybody. So what I was getting is they have a cool look. So I really do think that would have been a very popular in the 60s and in the 70s and on. It's very sad, but I mean, we all know that was the day the music died.
Absolutely. I mean, a cool onstage look is very important. I mean, many would consider Levi jeans, Chuck Taylors, and a black T-shirt from Old Navy in medium tall. I mean, many would say that is the ultimate, on-stage look. I'm just saying.
And there may be some biases in that statement. All right, so what do you have for music news?
Okay, well, I mean, this is the actual news of this is a little older, but as you know, we all lost Taylor Hawkins in where is it? It was March of this year. Incredibly sad. The guy was only 50, and the circumstances surrounding his death was, there was some discussion about it. But anyhow,
I hate when people get worked up about that. That's still a person who died, regardless of how they died.
We lost him. That's what happened. It's terribly, terribly sad. Anyhow, the tribute concert, which is going to happen on September the 3rd in London at Wembley, and September the 27th in Los Angeles, they've finalized the guests for this concert. And it's also going to be streaming on Paramount Plus. It's going to be on MTV. It's going to be on Pluto TV. It's going to be everywhere. You will not be able to avoid this concert. But the first one, of course, is the London date.
Of course.
And they released the sort of the final lot of guests who are going to be playing with the Foo Fighters. And I mean, you look at this. I mean, who you got on here? Stuart Copeland, Liam Gallagher, Omar Hakim. I mean, he's one of the finest drummers in the world.
Yeah.
Justin Hawkins from The Darkness. Yes. Chrissy Hine, The James Gang. Brian Johnson from AC/DC. John Paul Jones. Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson from Rush. Brian May's going to be there. Roger Taylor's going to be there. Nile Rodgers is going to be there.
I wonder how much one ticket for this show would be.
I think it was reasonable. I think it was within the realm of what you'd expect for something like this. It wasn't like $10,000 a ticket or something.
No. But still probably out of my what my credit card's going to be approved for, Tim.
Exactly. But then like the Los Angeles day has some of the same people. They're traveling with them. But then it's got like Miley Cyrus, Joe Elliott, Phil Collins from Def Leppard, Gene Simmons, Nikki Sixx, Chad Smith, Rufus Taylor, Lars Ulrich from Metallica. Wow. I mean, the lineup is unbelievable.
And it's a great mix of old, new, different people from different genres and different people who do different things. Wow. But
sure.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, as you would imagine, the bill is drummer heavy because Taylor Hawkins was an amazing drummer.
Of course.
But, some of the other people on this bill, I mean, it's unbelievable.
I've never been a huge Foo Fighters fan, but I do know that a lot of their music is very good. I've loved the band as a whole. They're very talented. You know what I mean? Even though they're not necessarily my cup of tea, they're very talented. But he, specifically, Taylor Hawkins, was probably my favorite member of the band. Like when he sang or when he did extra stuff or when he performed, he's a great showman. So it's sad to see he's being missed, but I'm glad to know everybody's coming out for him.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wishes that Taylor Hawkins was around still touring with the Foo Fighters, but life has taken a path and he's no longer with us. But let's hope he can be celebrated correctly at these concerts, and if nothing else, it might give some closure for Dave, because I know that Dave Grohl has not performed. Well, he performed with Paul McCartney at Glastonbury, but they cancelled their tour and they haven't been out with the Foo Fighters since. And I think it's going to be very hard for Dave to continue business as usual without having Taylor around.
Well, this is not his first go around with the very close friend of him passing away, and sadly bad circumstances.
Oh yeah, so I mean, it's life is repeating itself for Dave, and it's very sad that that's the case.
Yep. All right. Well, that's everything I have. Do you have any other music news, Tim?
That's the only music news I have this evening.
All right. Are we going to step into you guessing how to spell rapper names?
Yeah, I think so. So if you haven't heard this segment before, Joy dreamt up this great idea to get me, who is not a fan of rap music. It's not my cup of tea. If you like rap, that's fine, but it's not my cup of tea. And as we know, some rappers have complicated names that involve asterisks and dollar signs and weird capital letters and weird spelling. So she thought, Joy, she would find some rappers and see if I was able to work out the spelling. Now, last time we did this, if you heard our previous episode, I maybe got a little bit too adventurous. However, Joy, I think this time is tailoring this to my adventurous spirit.
Yes. Well, I'm attempting to. But to be fair, one thing I didn't think through when I came up with this quiz is I would have to be able to say these names to Tim for him to accurately hear them. And we all know words are hard for me. So that was not thought through. But this is going to be fun. All right, Tim. So your first one is Can You?
C @N letter U capital.
Close. So it's C, capital C, A-N, just like can, -, and then the letter U.
Oh, well, I see that there is a little dash in there.
There's a little dash in there. All right. So this one involves two non-numeric or alpha characters, just so you know.
Okay.
Rapping for Tay.
Rapping for Tay. RAPPIN number 4 T @E.
So I just realized upon saying it's like rapping forte, like your forte. I didn't get that. That's a lot of Anyway, everybody, I was like, so it's RAPPIN.
Got and then correct.
What am I thinking of? What is the one that's like apostrophe?
Okay.
And then the number 4, and then it's a dash, and then Tay is just TAY.
Ah, see, I'm getting too adventurous with the @ signs.
I love how I didn't realize it meant rapping forte until I got it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. See, look at them, Tim.
Well, do you know what? So, like in the UK, growing up on TV, you didn't have it here, but we had something called Oracle and CFAX. It was called Teletext. And it was a very early form of internet, if you like.
Okay.
And it existed in the late 70s and during the 80s. And you didn't need anything special. You didn't need a phone line or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And you would have your TV, and each of the channels would have a teletext service. So you put it on ITV, and their service was called Oracle. And you press the button, and they would have like a home page. And then it would say news on page 107. And you go 107. And then the little numbers would run round. And when it caught up to 107, there we are. There was the news. And then they had sports on there. They had games on there and stuff like that. And the way that it worked is it was transmitted along with the TV signal, but sent in like a pulse. So that's why you had to wait for the numbers to roll around.
Interesting. No, we didn't have anything like that. We did have web TV back in the day, but that's different, obviously.
Yeah. But the interesting thing, so I said there was 2 main services. You had the ITV independent channels had Oracle. That was their service. The BBC's version was called CFAX, CEFAX, or CEEFAX. So it's some spelling variation like that. I only worked out, and now bearing in mind, we had teletext TVs growing up. I lived above a TV shop, and my dad was in that trade.
Yeah.
I would say 2 months ago, it clocked on me that CFAX is CFAX. You're seeing the facts.
Oh, yeah.
I literally.
I didn't get it either until you said it.
Yeah, they wound up, teletext however many years ago. I was brought up in that environment and only worked that out 2 months ago.
Well, rapper forte and C-text. They're one and the same. That's funny. It's really weird, though. What was it like? It's weird when you think you know something, Tim, and then 10 years later, you realize you've been wrong the entire time. You're like, oh, God, I've been saying that wrong for the last 10 years. All right. Are we ready for the topic at hand?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week, it's Joy's turn to pick the topic. And as ever, I don't know what she's picked. So, Joy, over to you.
I cannot believe, let me restart this, guys. I cannot believe we haven't had this topic yet. This is an overdue topic. This is a topic that we've spoken many times about this particular person. We have spoke a lot about different songs from this particular person, but we have not done an episode. And with this episode will come out near and dear close to Halloween, and to keep with my creepy ambiance, because I'm obsessed with Halloween like every other white girl. You can laugh at that, Tim. I said it about myself. With that being said, it is the Michael Jackson episode.
Ah, okay.
And we're going to talk about Thriller a little bit coming into the Halloween season. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Michael and all that kind of stuff. But I did have a lot of facts about the Thriller episode I wanted to throw in and things like that.
Okay.
So this is officially the Michael Jackson episode. I want to give a clause at the beginning. There's some talk about some things that people agree with or disagree about with Michael Jackson now, and there's some things in the background and things like that. Me and Tim are not going to talk about that. We are going to appreciate the music, and that's all we're going to do. This is not a positive or a negative on that.
Sure, we are celebrating the art. We're not necessarily delving into the artist, if you will.
Yes, me and Tim have said many times we separate the art from the artist, and that is what we're going to do. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know there's some culture right now that he is not always the most accepted, but that is not what we are talking about. So start with, we are going to talk about Michael Jackson. I mean, we will hit on the Jackson 5, but this is mostly going to be about his only career, not like his what's the word I'm looking for? Solo career.
Solo, that would be correct, yes.
I almost said his single career. I was like, that's not right. And this is why harder words. So if you guys do not know, Michael Jackson was born on August 29th, which is also one of the reasons I picked this, because you guys don't know when me and Tim are recording this, but it's very close to that date. Mm-hmm. We're about a week away. In 1958 in Gary, Indiana, which, if you know anything about Michael, he is originally from Indiana. He began performing with his four brothers in the pop group known as the Jackson 5 when he was a child. The group scored his first #1 single in 1969 with I Want You Back. By age 11, Jackson was appearing on TV, and by age 14, he had his first solo album. At a Jackson 5 TV series, it was a cartoon series, even started in the early 70s. And by 1976, the Jackson family, including his sister Janet, launched a TV variety show called The Jacksons that ran for one season. Throughout the 70s, media attention focused on Michael, whose piped vocals had a very high voice, circa like ABC, I'll Be There, and many of their other hits. That's what he was known for. Mm-hmm. So then throughout the 70s, he started producing his own solo work. What I think is he did have two albums before this, but I think what most people think of when they think of Michael going solo is Off the Wall.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was a big Michael Jackson fan, we'll say way back when, but certainly when I was much younger. Mm-hmm. And I considered Off the Wall to be his first solo album. But I know he had that album, Music and Me, and I think there's another solo album that he had prior to that. But I think where the solo Michael Jackson years really begin is when he hooked up with Quincy Jones.
Exactly. So then, of course, he became the first solo artist to score 4 top 10 hits from one album, which is Off the Wall. And then he went into Thriller, which we all know is the greatest selling album of all time. It still has that, selling 45 million copies around the world. He scored 7 top 10 singles and won 8 Grammys. Although his next album, which is Bad, which is in 1987, sold about half as many copies. Thriller is still known as the bestseller. And in 1991, Jackson signed an unprecedented 65 million record deal with Sony. And that year he released Dangerous.
Yeah, Dangerous is, I don't think that's a Quincy Jones production, I don't believe. And it is a real marked change in his sound because you have Off the Wall, you have Thriller. Off the Wall has a very kind of 70s disco feel about it. And then you have Thriller, which was similar to some of the pop in the 80s, but it had its own sound. It was its own thing. And then Bad was, again, embracing some of the popular music that was around at that time. And Dangerous tries to do the same, but he's going very much more into a kind of dance thing. And Dangerous is probably my least favorite of the solo albums.
So I have a theory about this, and this is just a Joy theory. I have not confirmed or denied it, Tim. I think Bad, because for those who don't know, I've talked very extensively to Tim. I'm a huge Michael fan. I researched, I own every album. He is near and dear to my heart. It was because it was like that arena. So there's two factors. There's the fact that music videos were very popular, but that's not what I think it is. I think it made a good stage show. I think it's when he was in the height of his, the very iconic, almost looks like a military outfit he wore a lot, and the gold-studded things, and then the big stages. I think Bad was the start of it, and Dangerous was the next step in that, selling out the arena type sound. Does that make sense?
Sure, it does. And do you want an interesting rock and roll fact about his kind of, with his kind of leather thing with all the buckles, that look that he had in Bad. Mm-hmm. So Steve Stevens, who is the guitar player for Billy Idol, he's been Billy Idol's musical collaborator for many, many years. Steve Stevens plays on Bad. He plays on the track Dirty Diana. And at the time, Michael Jackson's look was pretty much as you found it in Thriller, the penny loafer shoes and the super tight trousers, and that was your classic Michael Jackson look. So Steve Stevens, who very much had his own rock star kind of look, which had like the leather and like the PVC and the buckles and all, kind of that was his look. He went into the studio to record all these tracks, and of course he's working with Michael Jackson and stuff like that. And apparently Michael says, where do you get your clothes from? And he said, I'll have to introduce you to the guy who does all my stage costumes. And there you go. That's where it came from.
That's cool.
And if you find any like pictures of Steve Stevens in the 80s, that's exactly what he looked like.
Make a note, and maybe we'll do like a side by side and put it up on the Instagram of Steve Stevenson and Michael Jackson.
Absolutely.
That'd be perfect. So, and I do know who owns a lot of those clothes now. It's Lady Gaga. She keeps them in a typical controlled chamber. That nobody it's like she bought a bunch of them at like one of those official auctions. You know what I'm talking about, Tim. Spent probably millions of dollars. I have not confirmed or denied this. And she keeps them in a temperature controlled chamber to keep them in pristine condition. So I know she owns like that famous red jacket. She owns a lot of gloves and the black one with the gold buckles. They kind of look like bullets, but I don't know if that's exactly what it's going for. But that one, you know what I'm talking about, the black one.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
So I know she owns, and she does own a Thriller jacket. So,
okay, I think in any costume preservation type thing, I think there's a certain way that there's a certain temperature you have to keep that stuff at, and also I think the kind of air you pump into it has to be a certain thing. Because I know when they had, this is completely separate from Michael Jackson's stage costumes.
Yeah,
but when they had Neil Armstrong's suit that he walked on the moon with, after the Smithsonian had done all the work to preserve it. It has to be in a special temperature-controlled case with a certain air nitrogen mix or something to stop the materials in it breaking down.
That's exactly where she's keeping it, apparently, which is good. I mean, at least it's with somebody who's taking care of it.
Sure.
So there you go. That's who has a lot of it. I don't know that she has all of it. I've just watched a thing where she was talking about it. All right. So then we're not going to get into it, but, he moved. He did in the early 90s get a reputation for being a little eccentric. He spent a lot of time at Neverland Ranch, which had all the wild animals and a Ferris wheel and all the things. Of course, then, he married Lisa Marie Presley and had some children, things like that. And then, unfortunately, Michael Jackson did pass away on June 25th, 2009 in L.A. Just before he had planned his concert tour comeback. He was 50 years old.
I know. I remember the very day. It was on a Thursday. I was at the Freak Jam when the Freak Jam was at the Rising Sun in Slough, and we was all standing outside. Because often that's where you congregated, because the music was going on inside, and if you want to come out for a chat, you come outside. And at the time there was smoking laws, so you couldn't smoke in the pub, so people were all outside. And I remember it was Adrian Barry, fantastic musician and guitar player, bass player, all rounder. He's like, Michael Jackson's dead, and we're like, what? So I don't remember exactly what I was doing. I remember I was at home, just like, average whatever day of the week it was. And my friend Molly calls me, and she's like in a panic because she said her dad just came in and told her that Michael Jackson passed away. And her mom had just been watching the black or white video, and she was in such a state of shock. This is what she said. She looked at me and went, "No, we were just watching him. He can't be dead." Oh, bless her. And then she, it dawned on her what she was saying. So then she called me and we were in a panic. I will say, though, poor Farrah Fawcett, she passed away the same day. It was a bad day to pass away. I wouldn't want to pass away the same day as Michael Jackson, because ain't nobody going to remember you. No, because I think her sad death gets very much overshadowed by Michael Jackson. I think Farrah Fawcett was battling cancer and all kinds of stuff, and she'd had some chat show appearances on Letterman where she hadn't necessarily come across as well as she should have. Wow. And we sadly lose one of the Charlie's Angels, and then it just doesn't make the headlines because everything's Michael Jackson. And then doesn't Patrick Swayze die with in the same week or something? I think it was something like that. And I think, again, he'd been very sick for a long time. He died really close to it, too. I remember that being a thing, too. And that's not to insult Michael. It's just darn, if I was going to pass away, maybe not the best time to do it. But anyway, yes. So
with that being said, so that's kind of the basic, that's a very watered down version of Michael. So I thought it would be fun to discuss his solo albums and songs and things like that. But I also have a few factors on Thriller I want to hit on. So to be very clear with what we were talking about. So his first solo album was Got to Be There, which was in the early 70s that Tim was talking about. And then he did Ben as a single, and then Music and Me. And then it was technically Forever Michael. And this is something that I want to talk to you about. Tim recently discovered The Wiz.
I have, yeah. I've yet to actually see the film The Wiz, but I don't know. I don't know why I was thinking about it, or someone mentioned it, and I bought the album. I got it off Discogs. I got a used vinyl copy of it that's in absolute mint condition. And not only is the album and Gatefold Sleeve superb, obviously the music is amazing,
yes,
but it had an order form for merchandising. And I love that when you get something used like that from the 70s and you pull it out and it's, oh, look, I could buy a T-shirt for $3.99 plus shipping.
So the biggest song that most people know from The Wiz is Ease On Down the Road, because Diana Ross is in it too. It's Michael. And it's fantastic. If you've never listened, even if you don't like The Wizard of Oz, it's not the same. It was Motown's take on The Wizard of Oz, basically. And it's fantastic. So I thought it was cool. Tim one day was like, have you had it? I was like, oh my God, yes, I have. It's funny. So the next one is where me and Tim started, which is Off the Wall. So Off the Wall had Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, Off the Wall, She's Out of My Life, and Girlfriend were probably the biggest songs on that album.
Yeah, so I would say Thriller gets all the headlines, I suppose, but I would say probably Off the Wall is my favorite Michael Jackson solo album because as I said before, it has the Quincy Jones production, and it's sort of embracing that disco era where a lot of the songs have that kind of like orchestra kind of thing going on.
So Rock With You is one of my all-time favorite Michael Jackson songs. And, I've talked very highly about how much I love disco. So you're right. When I think of Michael Jackson disco, that's what I think. I think of Off the Wall. But I mean, Rock With You is probably what I think of one of the greatest songs of all time. Easily.
Yeah, it's got such a good feel. It's got such a good, kind of feel good thing about it. It's just a good song.
And it's a stripped down. So I love Michael for what he is. And it's like, we've talked about this with many artists. I always say the spectacle that is Michael. I like Michael for what he is as a person, and I like the spectacle that is Michael. But that was one of his more stripped back. Because, he's literally just talking to this girl, like, girl, let me, you know what I mean? It's very, but it's like, it has this little funky beat. It has a very classic Michael in the music video with it's like him by himself. I feel like it's one of his more stripped back songs that I really appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. What were I don't have the track listing up in front of me, but what are some of the other tracks on Off the Wall?
Hold on. I clicked off. Let me go back. So Off the Wall, we talked a little bit. Let me go down. Yes, everyone, I'm Googling this live on air so I could say the specific words I'm supposed to. Don't come for me, internet. All right. So the title track, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. We already talked about that one, which was, probably one of his greatest songs of all time. Then Rock With You. Working Day and Night, Get on the Floor. That's the side one. Then side two is Off the Wall. Girlfriend, She's Out of My Life, which I also love. I Can't Help It, and It's Falling in Love, and Burn This Disco Out. Now, I do know Girlfriend was written by Paul McCartney.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I seen that. Well, actually, I remember Paul McCartney talking about it. Because, they've worked together. We've talked about their kind of relationship about buying music and things. Quincy Jones was the director of all of this and the, producer. I guess it's the word I'm looking for, producer. And then I Can't Help It was also written by Stevie Wonder.
Oh, wow. Because Stevie Wonder collaborated with Michael Jackson, I'm sure, on our stuff that we're going to come to later.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I will say that the track Off the Wall itself is such a good track.
It is. And I love a good disco song, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to. And it's him and his disco.
Yeah, the whole thing is Michael Jackson disco. I mean, you've got like, there's a couple of ballads, like She's Out of My Life is not a disco song. It's kind of a ballady type thing. But even like that last track, Burn This Disco Out, I mean, that's popping. You play that in the Moose Lodge at 10 p.m. between sets, and people are going to love that. Probably.
People are doing shots of tequila while singing at the top of their lungs. Tim can tell y'all. All right. So he did like a single album called One Day in Your Life, which I'm not that particularly worried about. And now we're going to step into Thriller, because of course we are. So, as anyone with like half a brain probably knows nowadays, Thrillers with an S, that's not how you say it. Thriller is the greatest selling album of all time. There's 9 singles, I guess you could say, or big tracks that come off of it. The big things people know is The Girl Is Mine, which also is with Paul McCartney. Then it's Billie Jean, Beat It, Want to Be Starting Something, Human Nature, PYT, Pretty Young Thing. Of course, Thriller. So those are the big tracks off the album. Tim, I'm sure you've heard the whole Thriller album, 1,000 times now?
Absolutely. I've heard it 1,000 times. I've owned it 3 times on compact disc. I've owned it on cassette, and I've owned it on LP. I'm so incredibly familiar with Thriller. I mean, I know from reading the liner notes, like in PYT, one of the PYTs is Janet Jackson.
Yep, it's true. So, with that being said, I thought it'd be fun, since this will come out close to spooky season, to just discuss some facts I found on Thriller that people might not know. So, for those who don't know, Thriller was released on December 2nd, 1983. Director John Lettuce from the Blues Brothers' American Werewolf in London extended the track, the 7th and final single release from Thriller album, into a nearly 14-minute long musical horror film, quote unquote, letting Michael indulge. And apparently he had a big thing about murder, mystery, fantasy kind of stuff. He's big into that. Thriller got huge saturation play on MTV and has been seen more than 149 million times on YouTube. So that's just to put in perspective how large Thriller is. So the video cost $500,000, and it was at the time the most expensive music video ever made. CBS Records wouldn't pay for a third music video for Thriller, apparently, so that's why there's only 2 like music videos that come out of it. And MTV had a policy for never paying for clips. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Yeah, you find that. I think even like radio stations, they don't pay to play the stuff.
Huh.
And I think MTV is the same. That they, unless it's original programming, music videos, they was expected to be given that stuff for free, because certainly in that era, the goal was to sell records. So if MTV are playing your promo clip, the thought being is that you're going to go out and buy Thriller.
So here's how they funded Thriller, because this is going to be the third, because, they already had 2. This is the third. Jackson and Landis funded their budget by getting MTV and Showtime, like the TV show or TV channel, to pay $250,000 each for the rights to show a 45-minute making of Thriller, which we've all seen, Tim. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That video that we've all seen where they go back behind the scenes and talk about the girl and the monster. So they didn't pay for the rights to the video. They paid for the rights for the making of the video.
And in fact, I have a very particular memory of that making of Thriller. So my uncle, who now lives in Australia, he lives in Perth, but that's not the reason for the story. But anyhow, he used to be super into Michael Jackson, and it was around the time I was discovering different music that I would like. And I think I had Off the Wall, but anyhow, you couldn't buy the making of Thriller as a retail VHS tape. Nowadays, I would say nowadays, so they don't make VHS tapes, but, after a while, you could get anything that you could rent in the video shop, you could go and buy it. But certainly back then, the monopoly was that you could only rent stuff on tape. And it used to take ages and ages and ages to come out on something you could purchase, if at all. But my uncle was very devious about if he wanted something, he would get it, regardless of how much effort or cost he put in. So one Christmas rolls around, my nan and granddad's house in Bedfont, which is in the London Borough of Hounslow, for you bingo card people out there. And it was always my job to dish out the presents from the tree. So I'm dishing them out. And I open up this video, this present, and it was from John. And it was the making of Thriller. It was the rental cassette. Now he must have bought it from somewhere or got it from somewhere. I don't know where he got it from, but it was very very exciting to have that in my hands. And then I think I watched it on Christmas. It was fantastic.
I have no clue when the first time I've seen it, but it was much later. But anyone who's ever seen anything about Michael, that's a very famous documentary. So that's really cool, Tim. That's a cool story. Plus, Christmas is always great. All right. So the original working title for the album was called Starlight.
Yes, I did know that because I have the expanded version of Thriller, which I got in a thrift shop for $1. Well, I had the standard CD version, and I'd had that for a while. And then I was in a thrift shop, and it had the expanded edition. And I guess, how can I not buy that for $1? And there is a track on there called Starlight.
Yes. So basically, it says Rob Temperton, which you probably heard of him, came up with the name Thriller. You know, he's a songwriter. The working title was Starlight. Temperton, who's British, I know that, was formerly of the funk band Heatwave, also wrote Baby Be Mine and Lady in My Life from Thriller. And then he actually penned Rock With Me and Off the Wall as well. And then he came up with the name Thriller.
Yeah. And I said the original demo is Starlight.
Yeah, that's cool though. I mean, Starlight kind of makes sense because it was at night, I guess, maybe.
Sure. But I mean, would it be as iconic if the album was called Starlight?
Nah, it does lose a little bit of its thrill.
Oh, I see what you did there.
My twin sister's eyes twitching at that one. Sorry, Brandy. All right. So this one is, we're not going to get much into it, but I did think it was interesting. You know how the opening title card with the warning? Mm-hmm. Apparently that was inserted due to the Jacksons being Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, absolutely. They whatever their faith was, they didn't feel it was represented them, so they put that card up there.
So I just thought that was cool. And then also, Thriller is a coming of age story. So in adolescence, let me restate that. In adolescence, youngsters begin to grow hair in unexpected places and parts of anatomy swell, grow, things, puberty. You don't know what's going on. This is what the director, John Landis, said regarding the role of the werewolf. It's a metaphor. Everyone experiences these physical transformations in their body, which is unfamiliar, thoughts, feelings, whatever. Now we wonder, so that's what it is. It's a literal metamorphosis. It's supposed to be metaphor for puberty, which I find very interesting because Michael struggled, he had that very limelight struggle with his kind of changes. He was getting older, puberty. So I thought that was cool that they brought that into the music video, and I wonder if that was related.
I don't know. I'd never researched that piece before. I do know that Ola Ray, who is the co-star in Thriller, when he's changing, she screeches like you wouldn't believe.
She is. I just thought that was cool. I hadn't heard that either, Tim. That was the first for me. Given that's strictly coming from the director, Michael was up. I think he was already passed away by the time this was Britain, so we don't know his point of it. But it was cool. And then Thriller. So Jackson's Thriller's co-star, former Playboy playmate Ola Ray, also appeared on Cheers and Beverly Hills Cop 2. Other notable music video was she was in the Give Me the Night video by George Benson.
I didn't know that.
Which is also a Rob Temperton, written by him and produced by Quincy Jones.
There we go. I think we I don't think we've done a Quincy Jones episode. We should do a Rod Temperton episode because
that'd be cool.
He's quite an unassuming chap. I've seen interviews with him, and he's not you're just looking at that guy. He's not like someone who you would think would have written all this amazing music for all these legendary artists.
And he's somebody that, like, if I saw him in person, he just looks like an average guy. I wouldn't know who he was.
Absolutely. But he's this powerhouse of songwriting.
Yeah, I mean, he goes back 70s pop music, disco. He was in that funk, the band Heatwave. You know what I mean? We could go on for days about him. It's a good one, Tim. We'll have to bring him back in soon. But yes. So apparently, the girl, Ola Ray, went on a date with Benson, and her exact words was it involved hot dogs and champagne. George Benson from the Give Me the Night.
Well, I mean, good old George. He knows how to treat a lady. He's going to take her out somewhere. He's going to buy some delicious hot dogs, and then he's going to be really fancy, and he's going to supply champagne. I mean, good old George.
No one going to talk about George Benson playing the guitar on roller skates in that music video. When you said that, Tim, all the times, he's gonna treat her like a lady. You know that song. Anyway, all right.
Well, George Benson is a very interesting character because he's this renowned, revered jazz guitar player. Yeah, he also has this lot of like 80s pop career too. So like the guitarists know George Benson as this amazing jazz guitar player who's famous for playing in octaves as one of the styles that he does. And then like your casual music listener knows him for Give Me the Night and other such pop hits.
Well, there you go. All right. So I'm going to give just 2 or 3 more about Thriller, and then we will move on to the rest of his albums. But apparently Fred Astaire could have been an extra for Thriller. So what they're saying is, Fred Astaire, known for his dancing, was a fan of Jackson's dancing. Jackson, personally taught him to moonwalk. That's a famous thing people know about Jackson. He attended the Thriller rehearsal. And then Jackie Kennedy, or Onassis, she also attended too. I didn't know that. That's weird to me. But so they were both there. They said that they went into 3 a.m. filming in a bad neighborhood in LA. So Fred Astaire was there watching, and Jackie Kennedy was there watching until 3 a.m. in some random neighborhood. I haven't confirmed the Jackie Kennedy thing, but it says Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, which is her full name.
Well, that's interesting because not so much for Jackie Kennedy, but for Fred Astaire, because Fred Astaire, his last appearance on film dancing was in the 1978 Battlestar Galactica. He appears in an episode and they got him to dance. He didn't really want to dance, but they got him to dance in the episode. And that was the last time he appeared dancing on film. Now, remind me, what year did Thriller come out?
Hold on. 1982.
Okay, so it would have been 4 odd years after the fact. So had he have been in that ensemble dancing, that would have been his very last appearance on film.
That's crazy. So the Jackie Kennedy thing I think was interesting. I didn't know she edited the Jackson's Moonwalk autobiography. That's why she was there for some reason. And it says that she hung out in Jackson's Winnebago while they were recording until 3 a.m.
Oh, wow.
How random is that? I've never heard that. And I'm hoping that the Rolling Stone website's not lying to me right now. Don't come for me, Internet. I'm on Rolling Stone. So anyway, we're just going to do our last little fact about Thriller, and then we'll talk about the rest of the albums. So the Thriller choreography was a Beat It gang member. That's what it says. So choreography, Michael Peters also did the epic dance scenes in Pat Benatar's Love is a Battlefield and Jackson's Beat It video, where he played one of the gang members, the one dressed in white with the sunglasses and the mustache. He won a Tony for his work on Dreamgirls, but then died in 1994 of AIDS, sadly, at just 46 years old. But he was originally an actual gang member that was picked out because he was such a good dancer.
Oh, wow. The Beat It video is iconic. That scene when Eddie Van Halen is playing his guitar solo and they're like having like a synchronized knife fight and it's a dance.
Yeah.
It's so well done.
I mean, it's fantastic. I think that's one of my favorites too, though. I will say Beat It ranks up there. Though I do have a hard time not hearing Eat It anymore, but that's probably related to Charlie. Darn. All right. So my last fact was apparently CeeLo Green, the singer. Mm-hmm. He said he was so scared of Thriller, he would flee to his room whenever the video came on TV. There you are. All right, everybody. So we've kind of discussed that. So Thriller was, it's probably got, the bulk of what people know of Michael. Mm-hmm. Then he went to Farewell, My Summer Love, which only had two songs. They didn't really chart very well. Girl, You Are So Together, and then Farewell, My Summer Love, which is what the album was named after. Then we go into the bad era, which sounds weird if you don't know the context. It wasn't actually bad.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I remember when this album came out in the UK, so people were probably not as savvy to street talk, if you will, in the era when that came out.
Yeah.
And it had to be explained in tabloid newspapers that when Michael Jackson was talking about his album being bad, in fact, it was because it was good. And that was a discussion point on the news. I'm just saying.
So I have to tell you this story, Tim, because sometimes, we joke about these people. So you're talking about the bad thing. I had it was a plain black t-shirt and it said bad in the red writing, the famous that I wore a lot for a long time. I have no clue where it's at. Like clothes just disappear sometimes. I don't know where the bad t-shirt went, but I have multiple Michael Jackson t-shirts. But I remember this one. I was wearing it one day. I was probably like 20 years old and we had moved. I lived in Utah for a little bit with my husband. He's originally from Utah, but he was born in California, grew up in Utah. So I was in his grandmother's kitchen and I was wearing my little black bad t-shirt. I wasn't thinking anything of it. So my husband's brother had a friend who was over just talking to us or whatever. I don't remember what came to be, but I remember he looked right at me and he went, "Do you even know where that t-shirt's from?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, I wouldn't suspect you to be a Michael fan," and just walked off. And to this day, that has not set right with me.
That's weird.
It was a very weird experience. And then he said something about, well, I really like and he's talking about that song he did for Free Willy. He's like, "I like the song about the whale." And I'm like, well, you're not telling me you're really a Michael fan by using that descriptor. Like, what a weird statement. Because first of all, Tim, here's my problem with this. I've never met anyone who doesn't know Michael Jackson. That's an odd thing to bring up to begin with, right? Have you ever met anyone who doesn't know at least something about Michael Jackson?
Traditionally, no. But I do wonder, young people today, whether they know or care. Probably not.
That's fair. But this was like, it was just a very weird. And I remember looking at the guy and looking down, and I was like, yeah. And then he just went, I wouldn't suspect you to be a Michael fan. And I'm like, how do you define that? I'm literally wearing a Michael Jackson t-shirt. That usually it's a good indicator, Tim.
The question I have for you with your Michael Jackson t-shirt. So I take it was the bad cover on the front with the bad logo. Did it have tour dates on the back?
It did.
And was the last tour date Aintree Racecourse, which was the last date of his European tour?
Absolutely was.
I had the same t-shirt as you.
I remember I got it online. I was very excited about it. But I did
not get it online because when I had it, the internet had not been invented.
Of course. Mine's probably some remake. It probably wasn't an original. But I just remember just looking at the dude like, what does that even mean? Anyway, so that's just my own personal history with that. So with that being said, I mean, I Just Can't Stop Loving You. It's probably... I actually love that song, and I have recorded a version of that before with a friend that I didn't, and it's beautiful. It's got actually, it's probably one of my favorite. And what is that girl's name? Sheena Garrett?
Cedar Garrett.
That is her name. Her voice is gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. And when they was on tour for the Bad Tour, she came out on tour just to do that song.
So good. I mean, well, and that's what I was saying. I have a theory that between Bad and Dangerous, it was about that kind of arena playing live thing. That's what I think the album changes were. Well, that and the world had stepped away from kind of the disco sound as a whole.
Sure.
Yeah. But that's one of my favorite. I absolutely adore that song. And then, of course, you got Bad, which me and Tim have already discussed. It wasn't actually bad.
Now, have you seen, there's a YouTube video. You've probably seen this, Being Married to Charlie, but there is a YouTube video out there, which is Weird Al's Fat, Michael Jackson's Bad, side by side. When they created Weird Al's Fat video, they recreated it shot for shot.
Yep.
And there's a video which has the two side by side, and it is remarkable how well they did it.
I love how that whole Fat and Eat It would never be allowed to be recorded today. No. But Michael actually enjoyed it. He talked about he was a fan.
Yeah, I mean, why would you not be a fan? Because, your music is loved enough that somebody wants to make a parody of it.
I mean, who can complain? Of course, then The Way You're Making Me Feel,
Mm-hmm.
which I've watched that video now as an adult, and it does have some creepy vibes, Tim. He's just walking after her and like she's trying to get away from him, and he's just going down every alley in the middle of the night to get to this girl.
Just think of it in context of the era. It's probably not cool now.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's the point, but when I try to watch it now, I'm kind of like, it's a little cringy.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's a great song. Man in the Mirror, probably one of the most iconic Michael Jackson songs that makes me cry of all time.
Let me tell you about Man in the Mirror. So that is probably my favorite track on the album, Man in the Mirror. It's certainly the track that I listen to the most.
Yeah.
For me, the definitive version of it isn't the version on Bad. It's the Wembley, I think it's like Wembley 86 or Wembley something date, whatever it is. It's on the Bad 25, which was a box set or CD set that came out, which is the 25th anniversary of Bad. And it's a live recording from Wembley. And he has a whole gospel chorus behind him. And they break it down like contemporary gospel. Have you ever been to the gospel brunch at the House of Blues?
No.
It's, as you would imagine, it's like contemporary gospel and then add with massive food with it. But that's beside the point. But there's something about that gospel sound that I find very appealing. The bass players always have a 5-string bass. The way that the music breaks down, it's really good. I really like it. It's something that's outside of my normal genre of music I listen to. But when I do listen to it, I always find it very appealing, like that kind of gospel music. But the version from Bad 25 sounds like a gospel band. And I would imagine a lot of the people in Michael Jackson's band, despite being world-class touring musicians, probably grew up playing music in church.
Yeah. So the one Tim is talking about is there's a version of the song available on DVD. It's live at Wembley from July 16th, 1989. Or no, I'm sorry, 1988. My bad. Sorry, everybody. I said that. And then there's a live in Budapest, whatever that word is.
Budapest. But it's the Wembley one is the one I like.
It's not Budapest. It's something else. Some other word I can't say, Tim. Doesn't matter. Anyway, that exists too, everybody. The Dangerous Tour. If Tim could see it, I'm sure he'd correct me on that. But anyway, so that was, but yeah, I always think of, when I think of that sound, Tim, River of Dreams by Billy Joel always comes to mind, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. And that sound is kind of what I think of when I associate with that.
Absolutely. And there are numerous covers of Man in the Mirror on the internet. And a lot of like gospel vocal groups have taken that song. And then that's one that's in their repertoire.
I mean, I think it's one of those songs that the message is very simple. If you want to make a change, you start with yourself. We all know that. But it's so bluntly in your face, right? Like that's what makes it so iconic. So it's going to speak to everybody from different genres because we all know if you want to make a difference, you start with yourself. But he said it so beautiful. Well, he didn't write the song, but you know what I mean? It was said so beautifully. It was amazing. It just perfect.
Yeah. And it was written by Cedar Garrett who was the person from the previous song we were talking about.
And somebody named, well, I know who he is, but his name was Glenn Ballard, the guy who was on Alanis Morissette's thing.
Glenn Ballard, who co-wrote Jagged Little Pill with Alanis Morissette and wrote and recorded it in a week.
There you go, guys. And then, of course, it was produced by, the Jacksons and Quincy Jones, as always. Quincy Jones has got to be one of the most highest paid men of all time.
Well,
anyway.
as I've maybe mentioned before, there is a very famous Quincy Jones interview that came out about 3-4 years ago, and he didn't pull any punches, and he said a lot of stuff that probably was not super cool, but he was like, I'm old, I'm rich, I don't care. This is what I think.
I mean, that's fair. That's all I can say. So the next song is a song that I'm going to say controversially is not my favorite song, like at all. I actually don't like the song. It's Dirty Diana.
Yeah, and that's the one with Steve Stevens playing guitar in it, where Michael Jackson got the idea for his stage wear from Steve Stevens. I mean, it's okay. It's
I don't know if it's
not
like
my favorite.
The G minor. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not my favorite one on the album. There was controversy at the time because Princess Diana was a fan of Michael Jackson, and Princess Diana went to the Wembley concerts on the Bad tour. And apparently, again, tabloid newspaper fodder. Apparently, they were telling Michael Jackson's band that they couldn't do Dirty Diana because Princess Diana was in the audience.
So I have some further details on that, Tim. So apparently, initial reports at the time suggested the song was a poke at his close friend Diana Ross. So that was the first theory. However, he later denied that. In fact, Ross started using the song as an overture for her concert shortly before appearing on stage. In an interview special about Bad, Jones later confirmed the song lyrics were about groupies. Jackson also confirmed in the same interview to Barbara Walters that the song is not about Princess Diana, though he was told personally by the princess when they would not let him play this, that this was among one of her favorite songs.
Well, there you go. I think in the Wembley concerts, I think they played it anyway. It was just tabloid fodder of the day type thing.
Well, apparently she was there. She knows about the drama, but she made sure to tell him it was one of her favorite songs. But I kind of think it's interesting that they thought originally it was about Diana Ross, because remember his whole thing about wanting to look like Diana Ross, be Diana Ross. There's a whole thing there. It would be kind of funny if it was, because they thought it might be like a tongue-in-cheek thing about her, but apparently it was not, everyone. All right. Yeah. So moving along, so the other songs in that album were Another Part of Me, which just wasn't a major hit. Of course, Smooth Criminal, which is a huge hit.
Yeah, and I just like to go on record to let everybody know Annie is okay.
Annie is okay. I remember this. So I really liked both versions. I like I love the Michael version. I also like the Alien Ant Farm version, which is controversial, I realize, but I liked it for what it was. And I remember my roommate in college, my freshman year, never heard that song. She did not know what it was, but I got her. She liked it. She just was, I think, sheltered when it came to music. And so she was like, I want to hear that song about Annie being okay. She's asking me about it. And then later I was playing Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, and she'd never heard that song either, which is mind-blowing. Like, who hasn't heard that song, right, Tim?
How can you've never heard that song? That is a amazing 80s pop song. The video is iconic. Whitney looks amazing. She has a big smile on her face.
The dance scene is fantastic. The choreography, everything, the outfits. So anyway, I remember though, she was like, we were getting ready to go out on the town as freshman college kids do. And she was like, I want to hear that song about dancing with someone. And it took me forever to figure out what she was talking about. Then she had never heard, what Beatles song was it? Oh, hold on. Oh, The Revolution. And she never heard that. And I remember she was like, what's that one song that you like about a revolution? And I'm like, you're killing me here. You're killing me.
Was your friend, won't she live under a rock or something?
I feel like, and this is purely observational, I use the term friend lightly because we did not end up friends at the end of that year, but debatable. I was only 18. She grew up in a family, I think, that maybe listened to mostly country music in like Virginia. I also think she knew the songs, but she didn't know them like by name or who was singing them. Like maybe she'd heard them, Tim, you know what I mean? But she didn't quite know what they were.
Sure.
She also thought that our bathroom sink had a garbage disposal in it because she had never lived anywhere else that didn't have a garbage disposal. So there's a lot to unpack in that whole.
Have you ever lived in a house that had garbage disposal in the bathroom?
No, but she just assumed that in our dorm there would be.
I mean, I haven't lived in a lot of U.S. houses.
No, that's not a normal thing in the U.S. No. Just to clarify, everyone.
Though I should explain for our friends in the UK. So most kitchen sinks in the United States have garbage disposal. And what that is that like if you have two sinks in the kitchen, one of them will have this on it. And you run it and it has blades, spinning blades at the bottom. So effectively, you can throw any old food you like down it. It'll chop it up into little bits and then it will wash it away. Now, in the UK, typically, you'd never want to throw food down a sink because it would block it up. But it's unusual in the United States that there's now a facility where you just turn the thing on, it makes a grrr noise, and you throw anything you like down there with some water, and off it goes.
So the reason that this is weird to me is, one, because garbage disposals aren't found in bathrooms. That makes no logical sense. But two, there was no button. I don't know. So she like threw a bunch of food down the sink in the bathroom and it got clogged up, as you can imagine. 18-year-old, not smart. And then she said something about there being a garbage disposal. And I'm like, it's a bathroom sink. So anyway, so maybe she did live under a rock, I think was the moral of the story. Me and her ended up hating each other towards the end of that year. We did not get along after it was all said and done. Like very classic freshman roommate kind of stuff. You know what I mean, Tim? Looking back now, I realize it's all ridiculous, but.
Sure. I hope that she's happy, and maybe she got together with a plumber. I don't know.
Maybe. I have no clue what happened to you. Brittany, if you're listening to this, I hold no grudges, and not every sink has a garbage disposal. Anyway, so moving along. So anyway, so now we're going into the Dangerous era, which sounds weird if you don't know what I'm talking about, but it's the album Dangerous. So, of course, we have Black and White, which is probably one of Michael's number one hits. Remember the Time, another great Michael hit. Jam, one of my favorite Michael hits. In the Closet, Who Is It? Heal the World. Give In to Me. Will You Be There? Gone Too Soon. I mean, we could go on for days, Tim. There's so many great songs on that. I will say Jam or Remember the Time are probably my favorite. Maybe Heal the World.
Yeah, I have some very particular guitar memories of this of this album. So the song Black or White, it has Slash on it, but not on the main riff. The main riff is not Slash. It was whoever his guitar player was at the time in the studio.
I thought it was that girl.
It probably Jennifer Batten, maybe Jennifer Batten. I've met Jennifer Batten a couple of times at guitar clinics, but anyhow.
Okay, anyway, that doesn't matter. I thought it was her.
The point. But at the very beginning of that song in the video that's got Macaulay Culkin in it, that bit goes down, bam, 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 that kind of bit before the song starts.
Yeah.
That is Slash. And when Macaulay Culkin flips the guitar case open, it's a pink Ernie Ball Music Man, Edward Van Halen signature model.
Well, I wouldn't have known that had Tim not told me. I mean, I knew Slash was on it, but I didn't know all the details.
Yeah, Slash plays on the track Give In to Me. And apparently he was good friends with Michael Jackson because they both had a love of snakes.
That seems about right for what I know of both of them.
Yeah, I think Slash just, he's just a guy I know who's like snakes.
I mean, Michael had a monkey, he had a mouse, he probably had a snake too. That's not shocking. He's a big animal person.
Sure, but I just you think it's an unlikely pairing. And around that era, there is videos of like MTV Awards and stuff with Michael Jackson performing and then Slash coming on and doing a bit. It just seems an unlikely combination, but they bonded over snakes.
All right, so as we're probably getting close on time, I'm just going to hit on this little final album that most people would know. The rest after this, I'll run through it, but it's not really anything anybody know. It's the history, past, present, and future. That album includes Scream, which she does with her sister Janet. And then there's the iconic music video they do together. And there's this really sad, I don't know if she did it for MTV or what, where she performed it with the video footage of her brother behind her. She does the dance. And that one was really, I'm not a big Scream fan, but that spoke to me. It was very, if you watched it, it was probably really hard for her. You Are Not Alone. Great, number one in every country, huge, platinum hit. Earth Song, which I love, and this is when he really got into stuff about trying to help the world. They Don't Care About Us, which has multiple music videos for people who don't know, which is pretty cool. Stranger in Moscow is probably the other kind of song people would know. Did you have this album?
Yeah, I had it. I bought it when it came out. My favorite song by far on here is Earth Song. And the interesting thing about Earth Song, from a sort of musician's perspective, it has Guy Pratt playing bass on it. Now, Guy Pratt is the bass player who played with Pink Floyd after Roger Waters left. He was the post-Waters Pink Floyd bass player. He's also played on lots of stuff. He played on Sophie Ellis-Bextor's Murder on the Dance Floor. He played on Madonna's Like a Prayer, actually. He played on that too. And he is an incredibly entertaining chap. He does there's not like stand-up comedy, but he does like an evening with Guy Pratt where he tells stories and it's utterly hilarious. And during the lockdown, he had a Lockdown Licks series. And he did an episode on each of these tracks that he's played on. And he did a whole episode on playing on Earth Song. And he tells such a tale. I mean, I can't tell the tale as funny as he says it, but he's in the studio recording it. And Michael Jackson apparently was hiding under the mixing desk. And the engineer was telling Guy Pratt what he wanted to play from Michael, because Michael was whispering it to this guy. And this guy was telling Guy Pratt through the talkback. I'm not making this sound funny, but if you watch his Lockdown Licks video, the way he tells the story is hilarious.
Well, and I know I'm going to come to Tim's defense here. He might not making it sound that funny, but I have heard and seen Michael when people work with him, and he's just an interesting beast to work with. He's very direct. I've told this story many times on the podcast, but I still think about when he was working on This Is Us at the end and the Smooth Criminal. They were recording Smooth Criminal, and they had this so with This Is Us concert tour, there's a lot of CGI and things like that. And there's this thing where it was like the big picture of Smooth Criminal, and they're wearing the outfits and they're doing the dance, they do the slide. And then right at this right moment, Michael's supposed to pop out in some very distinct way. And I distinctly remember the producer looking at him and going, or director, or whoever, because it was a concert. Okay, so what is your cue? And he goes, I'll just feel it. And I could see the director's eyes go, because, the rest of the people and the thing need to know when you feel it, Michael.
Sure.
But he's like, no, I'll just feel it. And I could see the director going, okay. Because you can argue with him. He's Michael Jackson, but the director's also like, so when's everybody else's cue to start dancing? When do you come in? When does this happen? But yeah, Michael's very to the point with that. That was one of those moments that I was like, yeah, I see it. And then there was times where he would be like, everybody stop, and just be like, did you guys hear that? Everybody's like, hear what? So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That he would probably be, and this is to his credit, he's a perfectionist and he wanted it the way he wanted it, but it does make it hard for people working with him around him.
Absolutely.
So I imagine that could be pretty funny. And so apparently, though, Earth Song was one of his big things that was just to take him to prove that he kind of moved himself away from the Jehovah's Witness thing. I don't know if you knew that or not, Tim. It was one of his big things.
I thought it was more his take on the state of the planet and environmentalism rather than his faith.
It was big on him raging a war from, about deforestation and the earth and that kind of stuff. But apparently there's a big thing about it. It was one of his things about him moving away from being a Jehovah's Witness. That's neither here nor there. It's just, I didn't know that.
There we go.
And of course, it is probably one of his most iconic songs. I know he did a version live, I think with U2, that's supposed to be really famous. So I probably have to pull that. Maybe that'll be something we could post on the page. That's supposed to be really cool. But that's right up Bono's alley, the Earth Song type thing.
Exactly. I mean, we've spoken before about the famous version of Earth Songs at the Brit Awards where Jarvis Cocker from Pulp invaded the stage. I think we've already spoken of that, and that may be for many the best version of this song.
All right, we are running out of time, so I'm just going to run through basically to the end. He did Blood on the Dance Floor, History in the Mix, which had Blood on the Dance Floor, History and Ghosts, which most people are familiar with Ghosts. Now, Invincible has You Rock My World, which I love that song. And I love the music video. I'm a big fan of that one. And then Butterflies and Cry. Then there was one called Number Ones, and the only hit on it was One More Chance. Then they did a Thriller 21st and 25th anniversary edition, which This Girl Is Mine from 2008. It had Will I Am in it. And then he did a version of Wanna Be Starting Something with Akon. And then it goes The Mind Is Magical, which was his Vegas show, and he had a song called Mind Is the Magic. Then there was the album called Michael, which had Hold My Hand with Akon, Hollywood Tonight, and Behind the Mask. And then Never Felt So Good was on, I should have stated, this was on the album Escape. There was Never Felt So Good with Justin Timberlake, and A Place with No Name was the last song with Escape. And then he went into the era, which is most people know, which is This Is Us.
Yeah, I think there was some controversy around this time that some of this stuff that was released after his death, there was some people even saying some of these tracks he didn't even appear on.
Yeah, because like this Escape thing was in 2014. Like, I don't know for sure, but I know most people know right around his death he had the This Is Us, and then these last three albums, it's kind of hit or miss. None of the songs, the only song here that seemed to get any traction was Hold My Hand, which Akon was on, which I remember when that came out. And I think that was an international top hit, but it was one of the controversial songs.
Yeah, because I mean, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones had a vision for these albums. And then it's just to me, it seems like a cash grab. It's like, let's see what demos we have knocking around and let's get some other people to sing on them. And there we are.
Well, Michael's another one of those artists we talked about with the Beatles. We've talked about with Prince. Sadly, when they passed away, a lot of their music went up for like auction and different things, and people bought rights and started producing things that they didn't want happening. And there was a big problem with Michael because he owed so much money. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of the cash grab happened to try to pay off things for like Neverland Ranch and things like that.
Sure.
Sadly, that's not how we want to remember him. We want to remember Miss Thriller or something cool like that. But that is, I think, probably a big factor in where these random albums at the end came from.
Exactly. Well, that would be our advice as we close off this episode. If you want to remember Michael Jackson, let's think about Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad, and maybe a bit of Dangerous.
There you go. I agree with that. That's good advice, Tim. We'll leave it at that.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you all for listening. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.